Hey, this is Chris with Phoenix Gaming. Today we're going to look at the Guardian Battle Host, and we're going to talk about why it might be the detachment for you. And we're going to do this by doing a league list preview. But before we dig in, let's have some quick announcements. I apologize for the huge delays between videos. I've had a lot going on in my life. The wife has been in and out of the hospital. She's getting better, but that's been something that's affected me. And then a lot of time with the kids and stuff as they're on summer break. And so I do apologize for the big break between videos. My goal right now is to do a video on the 1st and a video on the 15th. Obviously, we're a little off schedule, but I am trying. We're going to do some firefight, some 40k, and then we're going to do some old world and original content in there as well. Original content, as many of you know, I've been working on my own setting, working on effectively my own game. It's a game called Hounds of War. I'll do some videos on that. It's not my game, but I am using it and kind of tweaking it to bend it to fit what I'm trying to accomplish. So we'll get some video content on that stuff. I have written some background information for my game. You can find that at my new website. It's Phoenixgaming.space. I'll have a link in the description for that. So if you want to see what I've done there, and I'll start putting list builders and stuff like that up as I get them developed. So again, just wanted to share that. And I also want to do a quick shout out to Dan the Man and Lord Wellingstone. Those are my OG Patreon supporters. I appreciate the support that they have given me over the last year or two. Again, it's always appreciated, and thank you. We know what you're here for. Chris is talking about elves again, so let's dig in. So I've played 3 games of 40k in about 9 months. Almost a year. Obviously, I haven't been thrilled with 10th. I've been fairly vocal about it. I've tried not to just dog on 10th and tell everybody, well, I think it's awful. I've told people why I'm not a big fan of it. I told people how I feel about it, and I've just tried to leave it at that. I have decided to go ahead and give it another try, dip my toe back into it. I've told everybody before I've got a tournament coming up in Hawaii. I don't want to just show up and get my face kicked in, but I'm not going into it with the expectation that I'm going to win everything. Right now the plan is for me to play Blood Angels, but while I'm building the Blood Angels, I needed to get some practice games in just to kind of remember how to play. So what I did was I borrowed my brother's Eldar. He's had Craft World for a long time, and I figured this would be a great way to get in. I don't have to build it. I don't have to paint it. If I want to take it to an event, I can. There's enough here that we could both use it and go to an event. And I want to say I've played 2 games with that. 2 of my 3 games have been with this army right now. And I think the Codex is super neat. I think it has a lot of potential. But I will say that I'm coming from a huge break, so my perspective on it may not be the most up-to-date when I talk about some of these things. And as I relearn the new mission pack and I learn how to play again, I will obviously have changes in my perspective. So what we're going to do is, this video is going to be a list preview. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about what my intents are and why I think this stuff will work. And then as I play and do my recaps and stuff, we'll talk about where I was wrong, where I was right, and if you've got suggestions. As always, I'm open to hearing it. I'm all about conversation, as many of my subscribers know. What I'm not about is I'm not about people just saying, I'm right, you're wrong, and then not providing any kind of support or evidence. I want it to be a conversation. Playstyle affects things. I might look at something and go, this looks like the bee's knees. But if you like to sit and shoot, you're going to be like, this is awful. So playstyle also affects it. So keep that in mind as we dig in. And overall, my couple games that I've played before we dig into this, I do want to say they've been pretty fun. I don't know if it's been the opponents. I don't know if it's been the huge break has just changed my perspective on 40k. I don't know if it's the changes. I'll kind of feel it out as I play more, and I'll let you know. I do know it's at least partially been the opponents, because I've had a couple of good friends play with me that we haven't played in a while, and it's just been a blast to get back with them and roll dice, so I do think that is part of it. But overall, I think either something about the way I look at 40k or something about 40k has changed a little bit, and it has allowed me to kind of have a little bit more fun with it than I have in the past. First, we're going to look at the detachment rule. Then we're going to talk about what I like about it. We're also going to talk about the army rule. I guess that's actually where we'll start first, is army rule, what I like about it, detachment rule, what I like about it. We'll kind of go through strats and enhancements, and then we're going to blast through the list in a fairly quick way. I don't want this to be a 2-hour video, and I'm kind of chatty, as all of you know, so I'm going to do my best. Drive forward, stay on task. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the army rule. I was looking at the battle focus rules, and I thought they were really neat. I like the way they interact. I wasn't a Craft World player, and I still wouldn't even consider myself a Craft World player. I did a lot of Drukhari and some Ynnari, as a lot of you know. I don't have any previous expectations. So I'm coming from a fairly fresh perspective, and I think the new, because I do remember Battle Focus being different, but I couldn't even tell you what it was at this point. I like the token system. I think it's awesome. In a standard 2,000 point game, you get 4 Battle Focus tokens. It's not going to be on the screen. I'm going to pull it off my phone because this is such a small portion of what we're going to talk about, and we're going to immediately jump to the next thing. Each time one of the triggers shown in the Agile Maneuver section occurs, you can spend a Battle Focus token to enable a relevant or eligible unit to perform an Agile Maneuver. Basically, it's almost like extra points that you spend to do extra things, but it's not such a big list, and it's in line with what Eldar have historically been able to do. For example, with your 4 points, and they refresh at the start of every battle round, when an eligible unit from your army is selected to make a normal, advance, or fallback move, you can do Swift as the Wind, and you add 2 inches to the movement characteristic of models in that unit. First of all, that's awesome. And in the 2 games that I've played, I have used that multiple times in each game for a lot of reasons. It's really, really strong to get an extra 2 inches of movement. If you're using Howling Banshees, they get from 8 to 10, and if you have Janezar, and I'm not saying you should use Howling Banshees, this is just the example that came to my head. Janezar auto advances 6 with her unit, so you've got 16 inches advance and charge. That's pretty spicy. And you can use it with a lot of different things. You don't have to use it for that. When a good example is one of my 2 practice games coming back into it. It was my first one, and I didn't really kind of get a feel for the battle focus tokens until about turn 3 or turn 4. And I ended up tying my opponent that game. And honestly, if it weren't for the battle focus tokens, I wouldn't have even tied, because I was like, oh, wait a second, I can add 2 inches to this unit's movement, and then I can run them over here and take this objective and score these points, etc., etc. So, Swift as the Wind, super good. Flitting Shadows, until the end of turn, enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem. So this one's important. We're going to talk about this one because you can use this one, I believe, twice. Because normally you can use them once per phase, but this one's got some weird things. When an eligible unit from your army is selected to make a normal, advance, or fallback move, if it's set up on the battlefield or it declares a charge, until the end of the turn, enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem to shoot at that unit. So you can actually hit 2 units with that. And you can shut off Overwatch for 2 of your units. And it lasts the whole turn. Because you could do 1 in the movement phase, because you can only use these once per phase, but then you could do 1 in the charge phase. And your opponent can't Overwatch either of those units, like in the charge phase. So for example, let's say I had 2 units of witches, or a unit of witches and a unit of incubi in a Ynnari list that I wanted to charge with. Maybe I don't want them to Overwatch my incubi in the movement phase, so I tag them with this in the movement phase. Then they can charge in the charge phase, and they still can't be Overwatched because it lasts till the end of the turn. So that one I love, because Overwatch was, like, again, one of those things where I thought it was an awful mechanic that was implemented very poorly. I still, to this day, think that the range of it needs to go down to 12 inches, or it just needs to go to coming out of Deep Strike and charging like it kind of used to be. But it isn't changing. I have to accept it if I'm going to continue playing. And so having access to things where I'm just like, well, this mechanic that I think is really bad, I'm just going to make you not use it. That makes me happy, you know? Star Engines, it just adds D6 plus 1 to the move characteristics of vehicles. Sun Strike. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in that unit makes a pylon or consolidation move, it can move up to 6 inches instead of 3 that's actually really good. And again, I was able to use that to great effect in a couple of my practice games, just being able to charge something. I was able to kill the squad. I wasn't necessarily around anything. Could give them 6-inch consolidate so that I could tag an objective with them, things like that. It's a lot harder to use than it would have been maybe last edition, but it's still pretty good. Opportunity seized. One eligible unit from your army, excluding Titanic units, that started the phase within engagement range. So when an enemy unit makes a fallback move, it allows you to move d6 plus 1 inches. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I was recording. Sometimes I start these and I'm not recording, and I get like 30 minutes in and I'm just like, whoa, fuck. And then the last one is fade back. One eligible, after you get shot, you can move d6 plus 1 inches. And I believe defenders get to do this for free. I'll have to double check. But again, still pretty good. And it's a normal move, so you get to pick the direction. So now that we've done that, I'm going to talk about the detachment briefly. And then we're going to look at my list. And again, I don't know that it's a good list. It was just kind of I haven't played this in such a long time that I'm going to just kind of throw things together and we're going to see what happens. First of all, the detachment rule, defend at all costs. Oh, there we go. Each time a Dire Avenger, a Guardian, a support weapon, or a Warwalker model from your army makes an attack, if that model's unit and or the target unit are within range of one or more objective markers, add 1 to the hit roll. It's pretty good. I probably am not as efficient with it as I should be. It is what it is. Hitting on 2s, though, is pretty good. Dire Avengers are pretty spicy. And if I were to change anything in my list, it's probably I would drop, and we'll talk about this again later, I would probably drop the Howling Banshees that I brought, because I was like, man, I'm going to bring Howling Banshees because I want melee. Like, everybody that knows me knows I like to bonk. So I've got to have at least one dedicated melee unit in a list. But I would probably drop Jane Czar and the Banshees and just bring more Dire Avengers. Just because in this detachment, Dire Avengers are really, really good. And then their enhancements, 25 points. And Asuryani, yeah, blah, blah, blah. The Bearer has an OC characteristic of 5. I don't see a big reason to take that. I'm sure there is a reason to take that. And I'm sure there are models that you would want it on. But based on how I've built my list, I don't necessarily need that OC of 5. Ethereal Pathway. In the Deploy Army step, select up to 2 Guardians units from your army. They get the Infiltrator's ability. This is fantastic. Being able to infiltrate 2 units of Guardians is really, really helpful. I'm not a big fan of getting somebody who likes to Alpha Strike, so I tend to have, Rangers or like Space Marine Scouts, something cheap that I can forward deploy and just be a speed bump. Mandrakes. I know a lot of people are like, Mandrakes were so good. They're such a good utility unit. Mine were almost always dead by the end of turn 1 or turn 2 because of how I played them. I didn't use them as a utility unit. Instead, I tended to use them as a speed bump to prevent those Alpha Strikes. Or if I got an objective early on that required me to sprint or get somewhere, that's what they got used for, and then they usually ended up dying. Protector of the Paths. While the Bearer is leading a Dire Avengers or Guardians unit, once per battle round, when you can target the Bearer's unit with Fire Overwatch stratagem for 0 CP, and while resolving the stratagem, hits are scored on a 5-up or a 4-up if the Bearer's unit is within range of an objective marker you control. So it basically just kind of gives Dire Avengers or Guardians the old Dire Avengers rule where they Overwatch for 4-ups for free. Is probably really good. Not something I'm going to invest in because I tend to use Overwatch very sparingly. I'm not, again, because it's a mechanic I'm not a huge fan of. I do not do a lot of predicating my plans around it. I try to find better things to do, or I guess not better, but just different things to do with my points. Breath of All. While the Bearer is leading a Storm Guardians unit, each time you roll to determine a number of attacks made with a flamer by a model, you can re-roll the result, and a damage roll for the fusion gun, you can re-roll this result. So you can re-roll attack number, attack volume for a flamer, and damage with the fusion. It's okay. I don't know that it's worth 10 points. It's just, I don't know. It's handy, but I don't see it being something where I'm like, man, I'm so glad I took this on a consistent enough basis that I'm just like, yeah, this is coming with me. We're going to blast through stratagems real fast. I don't want to get too in depth with them. We're just going to kind of talk about them briefly. And, I'll just kind of make a note of which ones I use a lot. Until the end of your phase. So this one is warding salvos, one Dire Avengers or Guardians unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack that targets an enemy unit within range of one or more objective markers, you re-roll the wound roll. I use that one a lot. That's real handy, especially with Dire Avengers, especially with how my list is built, because like with the War Walkers, you can increase their AP for shooting, and then if they're within half range, they get sustained hits, and then if they're shooting something within range of an objective marker, they're hitting on twos. So you're gonna put out like a 10-man squad's gonna put out I think 44 dice with the sergeant upgrade. So it's 44 dice hitting on twos with sustained. You're gonna re-roll wounds, and if you've got Eldrad, which I do in my list, you can give them +1 to wound. So you can wound anything in the game on 5s at -2 AP, re-rolling wounds, hitting on 2, sustained. And I think it's like sustained 2 or 3. I could be wrong on that. We'll look in a minute. So Dire Avengers will kill just about anything you point them at. They kind of remind me of Flash Gits. I don't know if Flash Gits still interact that way, but that's kind of how they were. Then you have shield nodes, and it just does a -1 to wound. So if your unit is within range of an objective marker, you subtract wound rolls. Subtract 1 from wound rolls. That one's real handy, nice to have in your pocket. An enemy unit that has finished shooting its attacks, you can shoot as if it were a shooting phase with a War Walker. That one's kind of weird. It's not one I've really used a ton of, but it probably has more to do with how my War Walkers are kitted out. I have one Bright Lance and I have one Scatter Laser on my War Walkers, and that's intentional. And again, we'll kind of talk about why. Time to strike. Until the end of the phase, each time your unit advances, you can auto-advance 6. So again, that one's pretty handy. It's only Storm Guardians, but it is still handy being able to auto-advance 6, and then they can shoot and charge in a turn in which it advanced. So it just allows one of your, cheaper Storm Guardian units to get across the table very quickly. If you need to charge an objective, you can charge an objective. The biggest issue I see with Storm Guardians is they don't really do anything. They do have sticky objectives, which is handy, and again, based on where my list is at now, I'd probably drop a unit of Storm Guardians and bring another unit of Defenders. Defenders just seem like a better take for the points. But I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's no way to really manipulate Storm Guardians AP. I don't mind that they have 0 AP, but the fact that there's no way to give them AP kind of makes them feel kind of poopy at 2 attacks. They're almost worse witches. The only thing that doesn't make them worse witches is that their invuln is a 5-up consistently rather than a 6-up and 4-up in melee. So to me, that's a trade. But their ability's just better, and their base save is better, right? They have a 4-up save. 2 attacks, no AP is just kind of like, eh. Blades of Asuryani, or Asyan, them Asyams. Dire Avengers or Guardians. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit have the pistol ability. I consistently forget that this exists, or I would probably charge with Defenders or Dire Avengers a lot more often. But I'm just kind of a dumbhead sometimes, and I forget that this exists. But that's a great strat, and the amount of dice that you can put into a unit, especially with Dire Avengers or even Defenders, really, really worth that 1 CP. End of your opponent's fight phase, 1 Guardians unit from your army. If your unit is within engagement range of 1 or more. If it's not within engagement range, you can put it in strategic reserves. And when you do so, you return every destroyed Guardians model to your unit. This is another one that's pretty good. Again, I just tend to kind of forget it exists, but I'm also very out of practice. So as I play more, my opinion on these may fluctuate as I'm like, hey, okay, now I can remember, and I'll probably make some cheat sheets or something to just kind of help me. So those are the enhancements. Let's talk about the units. Dun dun dun. First off, we're going to start with the HQs. I do have Assman himself. He is the Dire Avenger King, for lack of a better word, the Phoenix Lord. I know he's not a king. The Bloody Twins, which are Assault, Half Pistol, 24-inch range, 6 shots, hits on 2s, Strength 5, neg 1, 2 damage. Like, perfect. Very good. And then his melee, 6 attacks, hits on 2, Strength 6, neg 3, 3 damage. So he actually has, like, really good melee also. While he's leading a unit in your shooting phase, after the unit has shot, it can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. So he gives a unit fire and fade, which is really good. I've used that ability every game, every chance I get, actually. And honestly, my second game, I ended up winning, but it was a come from behind win. And this ability right here was a big part of what gave it to me, was because I was able to shoot and move. I was far enough away from my opponent that he wasn't able to charge me. He tried to shoot me. I was fortunate enough that he didn't do a very good job. I was still on the objective, could give them -1 to wound, was able to spend a battle focus token to move them D6 +1 because they got shot, and then move them again and then go snatch his home objective. So it was a lot of, like, I think I moved them like 11 inches out of sequence, you know, because I did get a pretty good roll and stuff. But pretty good. And then once per battle, when this model is selected to shoot, it can give its Bloody Twins a damage characteristic of 3, anti-infantry 5-up, and devastating wounds. I forget he has this ability, but again, 2 games. That's it. I've played 2 games with this army. I may not forget it in my league game, because my first league game is tomorrow, but it's against Monster Mash Tyranids, so the devastating wounds is probably the only thing that I'm going to be worried about there. And it'll probably have to be where I'm like, all right, got to use the reroll wound stratagem on him also. So we'll see. So that's what I got there. I got Eldrad. And then we've got, or that's next, I should say, is Eldrad. Ya boy. Reading's hard. I apologize. And then Eldrad, if you haven't seen him, he's got an anti-character 4-up precision psychic attack. It's 1 shot, but it does D6 damage. The big reason I have him is for Doom. Like, he does give you an additional CP in your command phase, which is cool, but Doom is the bee's knees. At the end of your movement phase, select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches and visible of this model until your next command phase. Each time an Eldar model makes an attack, add 1 to the wound roll. So that's melee and shooting. +1 to wound for 1 full battle round. Super awesome. And I can't imagine not having it with the way my list is constructed. I would argue, I haven't looked at the other detachments, but I feel like Eldrad is almost an auto-include at his points. Giving you a command point and adding 1 to wound rolls for your whole army seems really good. But, again, I don't have the context of having played a bunch of games yet. So, and then he either goes with Defenders or Guardians. I'm still kind of working out where he goes. So, I've used him in both. I have no complaints about either. It doesn't really matter to me right now, but it may just be one of those things where it kind of shifts based on my opponent and what I'm playing against. And then I have a regular Farseer. Let's pull that handsome feller up, or lady. The regular Farseer, again, very standard Farseer stuff. They've got the Singing Spear or the Witchblade, and then you can get the Eldritch Storm, is D6 shots, it's psychic, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go through the whole data sheet. It's on the page. If you want to see it, there it is. Branching Fates, while he's leading a unit, once per phase, you can flip the result of a hit roll, a wound roll, or damage roll in that unit, excluding support weapons, to an unmodified 6. Again, it's one of those where I just kind of forget that he does this, because I'm kind of not the smartest. That's not true. I actually use it quite a bit. It's once per phase. I do use it quite a bit. But I always forget that I can use it for damage rolls, so arguably I should probably put them with the Storm Guardians because they've got the fusion, and I can at least be like, haha, max damage on my fusion. But he also gives Guide, which is the same as Doom, except it's +1 to hit. Arguably, I don't need this one as much as I need Doom. But again, the way my list is constructed, it's very handy. And I do have a lot of characters. And then I have Jane Czar. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on her because she doesn't really fit into the list. And then my Farseer does have Ethereal Pathway. So my Farseer can pick 2 Guardians units to infiltrate. Then Jane Czar, just because I have Banshees, that's why she's in here. While this model is leading a unit, each time that unit advances, so she auto-advances 6. And then they ignore any vertical distance when determining the total distance that can be moved during that move. And then when she makes an attack that targets a character unit, she rerolls the wound roll. And she's okay. There's nothing wrong with her. I feel like Howling Banshees are kind of I don't know, they're kind of weird. They're not great. The anti-infantry, I don't know, they just kind of feel like super witches. I mean, they have 2 damage, but they have less attacks. They have AP2 instead of AP1, but they have anti-infantry. But I don't know, they're just kind of weird. I feel like it's great that they can kill infantry. I'm not complaining. They just feel very one-dimensional. Having Doom does kind of open the door for them, being able to squeeze some damage in on some things that maybe they probably shouldn't, and that's nice. But all in all, I probably shouldn't have had Jane Czar and the Howling Banshees in my list. Like I said, I probably should have brought maybe another Autarch and some Dire Avengers and just lean super hard into the Dire Avengers, but I really wanted something that felt like I could get across the table, do some charging, bash some butts. Like, that melee threat is a big part of how I play, and not having it made me feel like it's kind of like my security blanket. Whether it's worth the points or not, it helps me feel better and helps me kind of play better. Then we have 2 units of Guardian Defenders. Let's find those handsome fellas. Again, because reading is hard, I just have the Shuriken Cannon on my the little support weapon platform, the heavy weapon platform. I just have the Shuriken Cannon. Didn't even look to see if you could change it. So when I submitted it, it had the Shuriken Cannon. And then I was just like, God, these kind of suck. And I probably should have brought like some Bright Lances or missile launchers. The missile launchers probably would have been the best take based on how my list is constructed. Like shooting a missile launcher at something while it's doomed probably wouldn't feel terrible, especially if I could hit it with the Warwalker first and give it the additional pip of AP, you know. But it is what it is. That's just not the world I live in. And, you know, sometimes you work with the tools you've got. As old TK says, when all you have is a hammer, you better learn how to turn every problem into a nail. They do, one thing I do like about them is they do get to do the fade back agile maneuver without spending a battle focus token. And they can do it even if other units have done it. And them doing it doesn't prevent other units from doing it. That is actually a really handy ability that can get you a lot of sneaky movement with your units. Then I have 2 units of Storm Guardians. Let's pull those up. And like I said, I just feel like they don't, I don't know, they feel weird. You can bring a couple power swords, which is nice. They just feel weird. Sticky objectives. And there's nothing wrong with them being almost purely a utility unit. I just think that maybe they shouldn't be the same price as Defenders is the main thing. But it is what it is. The main thing is they do have sticky objectives, which is handy. And that is probably really what you're paying for with them. And then from there, I have 2 Wave Serpents. You know, everybody was like, oh, are you running, what are the tanks? Give me a second. Fire Prisms, there we go. Everyone's like, oh, are you running Fire Prisms? And I was like, nah, I haven't even looked at them, man. Like, I'm sure they're fine. But I wanted the Wave Serpents for my list. And the Wave Serpents do have Bright Lances. They do have a Shuriken Catapult. Again, mostly because I forgot you could change certain aspects of that. But the Bright Lance was an auto take. And then each Wave Serpent, one's going to have the Howling Banshees and the other one has the Dire Avengers. And that's more to just kind of keep them safe and give them some extra mobility. Especially because I can blast those Dire Avengers down the table with the Wave Serpent, for example, disembark them. I could, if I wanted to, spend a Battle Focus token to prevent them from being overwatched because they're being set up, and then I could just shoot the shit out of somebody. So it gives them a nice, get them some extra movement without having to advance and do all this other stuff. Things like that. And Wave Serpents are just pretty good. They got a 5-up invuln, if I remember correctly. Yep, 5-up invuln. And then they're -1 to wound against attacks that have a higher strength than their toughness. So again, nothing crazy, but they're real handy. The problem is that, again, up until just now, I just forget that they're -1 to wound against attacks higher than their toughness. But again, that just comes with reps. I do have 1 unit of Dire Avengers. We're not going to spend a ton of time on those. I'm sure anybody who's playing Craft World right now knows what Dire Avengers are because they seem really good and they seem very versatile. In this detachment, or at least with Eldrad and a Warwalker specifically, there's not much they can't bring down. Being able to push them to -2, and then within half range you get sustained 1. Okay, it is just 1. And then the Sergeant can take 2 of the guns. So it's 10 man is 44 shots. And then you add the extra shots for Ass Man. And it's just a bucket of dice with sustained. You can hit on 2s. And then if you need to, you've got your Aspect Shrine tokens you can spend on them. Stuff like that. It's just a great all-around unit. They just do everything. There's going to be units that can do things better than them. Arguably, Warp Spiders might be better at clearing out chaff, although I doubt it. And Fire Dragons are going to be better killing vehicles. But there's just nothing that they can't really at least put damage on. I got a unit of Howling Banshees, like I said, and I get it. You know, I guess they can't be like too good, but it's not the end of the world. I'll play them. I'll use them. I've enjoyed using them. They've been useful in every game. So, and the fact that they move 8 instead of 7 and can advance and charge is very handy. You know, so they don't really benefit from anything in my army, but it is handy to have them. I have 2 units of Rangers. I'm not going to pull them up because they're just there for the infiltrate, and they're there for the just the body blocking to prevent alpha strikes. I do have 2 units of Vipers, and part of the reason I have the Vipers instead of more Warwalkers is just because that's what I have. But the Vipers are actually pretty solid with a 14-inch movement and the vehicle keyword. They can fly pretty much anywhere you need them to with the battle focus. They do have Bright Lances and then the Twin Shuriken Catapults, which I have to remember that they have. Again, I think I've only shot the Bright Lance with them every time I've shot. I never claimed to be good at this game. But overall, I like the Vipers. I think they're pointed pretty well. They seem pretty solid. Their movement's good. Their toughness is 6. Their save is 3. Their wounds are 6. So overall, they're not a terrible unit. And then the ability to suppress things is nice. If I hit you with the Viper, you subtract 1 from your hit rolls. That's been a very handy ability to be able to throw onto things like, haha, subtract 1 from all your hit rolls. It mattered in both of my games, honestly, it did matter. And then I have 2 Warwalkers, 2 units of 1 Warwalker. And like I said, the reason I don't have more is because I just don't have more. And they have a Bright Lance and they have a Scatter Laser. And my thinking on that was as follows. I'm not going to pull them up. The Bright Lance is there because it's a Bright Lance, right? Like, as a person who's played a lot of Drukhari, I know the value of a Dark Lance. And so a Bright Lance is there because it's a Bright Lance. The Scatter Laser is there because if the Warwalker hits anything, you can make the rest of your army get an additional pip of AP against that unit for the rest of the shooting phase. I can throw my Scatter Laser at something. I'm going to get, 5, 6 dice, I think it is. And I should statistically hit. Especially because Warwalkers get +1 to hit if they're on an objective. They get +1 to hit if you're on an objective. I can guide whatever I'm shooting at. So I can get them hitting on 2s. So I would have to roll an astronomically bad dice roll in order to just not hit anything. So it's really handy to just be able to go, okay, I've got 5 dice, I'm throwing it at this unit. That unit's going to get an additional pip of AP when the rest of my army shoots at it for the rest of the turn. That is why I've got the scatter laser. Plus, it just threatens, it makes it a Swiss Army knife. You know, if I were to give it, say, the Star Cannon. Sure, Strength 8, Neg 3, 2 damage is handy, especially with Doom in my list. But then I'm just like killing more elite stuff and that's it. And then I think I struggle more if I run into, you know, like a very hoardy kind of Cabalite list or some Gene Stealer cult. Whereas having the scatter laser is just like, all right, I'm just going to roll a bunch of dice and then I'm going to have my one shot. Roll a bunch of dice and then I'll have my one shot. That was the thinking behind it. So that's the list. And that's kind of what it's set up to do. I will be playing, it's the Tunneler detachment for Tyranids. I don't know much about it. Maybe I'll do a preview of his list beforehand, but I doubt it because that is tomorrow. I am playing him. I've never played this guy before, and that was part of the reason I wanted to get into the league again. I figured a good competitive league would be a good way to just kind of crash course back into 40k, plus get to play people I haven't played before, and just kind of get more involved with the community again. So we'll see how it goes. I will do a recap of that. I have very low expectations. I haven't played much. I'm very rusty. And the new mission pack has got some weird things to it. There's some good things and there's some bad things, just like with everything in life. The Challenger cards, not a huge fan, but they exist. So I just have to kind of work with them for now. The one thing I will say is I'll probably be looking at Ynnari. That looks like a lot of fun. And if I end up losing, if you lose, we're allowed to switch lists. And if I lose, I will probably shift immediately into Ynnari because I actually have 2 incarns. One's my brother's and one's mine. I forgot I even had one. So I have 2 incarns, so I can run Ynnari. I can pick up some Cabalites, and everything will be good. I actually have Cabalites. And I have some witches still. I didn't get rid of everything. Anything that was still unopened in box, I kept because I wanted to kind of start fresh. But anyway, if I end up losing, there's a good chance I just shift immediately into Ynnari because it looks so fun. You know, I'm not going to dive into it here. This is already a long video, but just to give everybody the heads up, be prepared for some more Ynnari content. And maybe we start diving back into Drukhari here. We'll see. I do still have my firefight videos on deck. I'm going to get those worked on this weekend and put up finally. Now that life is kind of mellowed out, we're going to start getting back on it. I appreciate everybody for watching. Thank you for joining me. Nick, if you watched this, buddy, I hope you enjoyed it. Proxy Hammer, buddy, if you watched it, I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoy my take on it. And if you've got some suggestions, feel free to let me know. That being said, again, thank you. Have a great day.